Hello viewers, welcome back. And in this video, we will learn about English literature. English literature is an important part for many exams related to English literature, uh, excluding BA in English, MA in English. If you are studying BA in English or MA in English or PhD in English, then English literature or English literary history you have to know. But apart from that, if you are appearing for NET and SLAT or any entrance exam or any competitive exam where English literature is included, okay, there this will diametrically help you. Therefore, you should know and you have to try to remember whatever the fact or whatever the things that I will discuss. Now, without any delay, let's begin the video. So, we all know English literature. It was born in England, no doubt about that. But how it evolved to the present day's form, that all thing we will learn. And if you talk about English language or English literature, then nowadays English literature and English language, it does not signify only one country. Nowadays, in the entire world, each country, more or less, they produce their own English literary works, right? And they have been producing these all things since time immemorial. So, English, that's why it has become like a cosmopolitan language come literature, right? So literature basically written in the English language, and it includes many countries such as the United Kingdom and its crown dependencies, Republic of Ireland, the United States, and the countries of the former British Empire. These all places where literature is produced in English, that all are called English literature, right? And the British Empire, it had colonized countless countries and places. So at that time, they had imposed English language as the official language, and they had also imposed English language as the medium teaching. So in that way, many native languages died too, but many native people of that particular land, they had adopted English as their second language, where they wrote literary works. Okay, and that's why nowadays English literature, it does not consist only one nation. Africa has its own English language. America has its own. New Zealand has its own. India has its own. Australia has its own. Every country has its own. So now let's try to dive in more into the literary history. So the English language, it has developed over the course of more than 1400 years. So it is one of the oldest languages. The earliest forms of English language, it was a set of Anglo-Frisian dialects. It was brought to the Great Britain by Anglo-Saxon invaders of the 5th century, and they are called as Old English. Okay, so many questions are asked about Old English in NET, SLAT, or many other entrance exam or many competitive exams. So you should know about it. That what is the if questions come like this, that write a name. Write a book name from the Old English language. Then what you will write? Then you have to write here, Beowulf. Beowulf is the most famous work in Old English. This is a basic fact, and you should know about it. And it has had achieved national epic status in England, despite being set in Scandinavia. So Scandinavia is not in England; it is in Europe. That is another thing. And despite that, despite its another subject matter, it has received critical acclaim and achieved national epic status in England. However, following the Norman conquest of England in 1066, the written form of the Anglo-Saxon language became less common. So this thing you should know. These kind of questions often asked, that when Norman conquest was done or break out like that, or MCQ will be given and the year of the invasion will be given. So you have to now choose. So the year was 1066. That this thing you should understand and you should remember. Under the influence of the new aristocracy, then the French became the standard language of courts, parliament, and polite society. So when Norman had conquest England in 1066, at that time, instead of Old English, French, it had become the standard language of courts, parliament, and polite society. People were love to talk in English at that. Talk in French at that time. That was the influence or dominance of France, or what you call it, French language at that time after the Norman conquest. So the English spoken after the Normans, it came to be known as Middle English. Now, first we have got to know about Old English. Now we are getting to know about Middle English, right? So, Middle English was derived. It had derived just after the Old English. That too, you should remember. It is the history of English language come literature. Then what happened? Okay, the form of English lasted until the 1470s. Then this form of Middle English that it lasted till 1470, when the Chancery Standard or Late Middle English, a London-based form of English, became widespread. After that, Chancery Standard of English, it was revolving and it became very popular, or and it spread among the mass of English land. Then what happened? Geoffrey Chaucer, he was born in 1343 and died in 1400, and he is also the author of the Canterbury Tales. So you must know about the Canterbury Tales if you are studying for MA, or if you are still in BA, or if you are preparing for NET, SLAT, or any competitive exam. Then too, you must know about Geoffrey Chaucer and Canterbury Tales. From here to many questions are asked. So that thing you keep in mind. So he was the author of Canterbury Tales, and he was also a significant figure in the development of the legitimacy of vernacular Middle English at a time when the dominant literary languages in England were still French and Latin. Okay, so he was the man, Geoffrey Chaucer, who had brought the notice of this Middle English mixed with the Chancery Standard. Okay, and in that language, he had created many literary works, and that has enriched English literature. Clear? Okay. Then later, after his creation, many literary creation, Middle English has also seen its own popularity among the people of England, despite having dominance of French and Latin language at the time. I had already told you that after the Norman conquest, there were two main languages. Number one was French, and the second was Latin. So these two languages were heavily used by the public itself at the time, to show that they are standards, to show that they love this language instead of Old English or Middle English. But despite that, Geoffrey Chaucer had tried to enrich, and he has tried to preserve this language by his literary works like Canterbury Tales. Clear? Then the invention of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg in 1439, it had also helped to standardize the language, as did the King James Bible 1611 and the Great Vowel Shift. And soon after the death of Geoffrey Chaucer, he had already enriched English literature through his Middle English works. Okay, and after that, in 1439, printing press was invented by Johannes Gutenberg. This is also a very pivotal question. These kinds of questions often asked. Even in some interview, these kind of questions are asked if you're a literary student. And if you're not, then too, this kind of question are asked. This kind of question is universal and it is timeless. Okay, so you should know. So after the Middle English, then in 1439, this printing press was invented by Johannes Gutenberg. And after that, this Middle English, gradually it had become a standard English language, and it was also enriched by the publication of Bible in 1611 by King James. He has published a Bible in his in this Middle English language, and then the Great Vowel Shift. This is also another rudimentary development after the Middle English. So you should also know about Great Vowel Shift. So in some of our English words in the Middle English time, many vowels were shifted. Okay, and today, right now, whatever the English words and sentences we are using to converse our emotions and feelings, there you will not get those words that were used in the Middle English time. So this has also changed many course of English language, pages of English language. So this is also an important event. So about this, please search or try to find out about the Great Vowel Shift. Here I have tried to talk about it very briefly. Then what happened? Then poet and playwright William Shakespeare, who does not know about him, but still. So poet and playwright William Shakespeare, he was born in 1564 and died in 1616. He is widely regarded as the greatest writer in the English language and one of the world's greatest dramatists. His dramas that were created after the Middle English period. Okay, from that time, his works are so universal that has been going on with us. We are still reading his books and we are still doing our research because of his universal themes. Okay, and universal significance. That's why he is one of the world's greatest dramatists. And his plays have been translated into every major living language. There will be very few languages where his works are not translated. Okay, and then what happened? And his plays are often performed more often than those of any other playwright. In the 19th century, Sir Walter Scott, he is also a novelist, and his historical romances, it has also inspired a generation of painters, composers, and writers throughout Europe. Here, I will, in this is just a part one, so I will give you a brief overview about the English literature history, literary history. But in our upcoming videos, we will try to discuss extensively, one by one. For each period, we will make one video. Okay. Then the English language, it spread throughout the world with the development of the British Empire that we all know. If there had been no British Empire, then today, I think, according to me, we would not have been reading or studying English literature. That is the fact. Okay, that's why British Empire had an immense role in popularizing and spreading English language and literature. And the British Empire, they had spread English language and literature between the late 16th and early 18th centuries. And at its height, it was the largest empire in the history that we all know. And by 1913, the British Empire held sway over 412 million people, 23% of the world population at the time. And during the 19th and 20th centuries, those colonies and the USA started to produce their own significant literary traditions in English, right? In India too, we can see this, right? So when you learn a new language, after that, people often try to use those languages to evaporate, to to depict their emotions or their literary talent. That's why in India too, there were many literary works written in English. So cumulatively, over the period of 1907 to the present day, numerous writers from Great Britain, both the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, the US and former British colonies, they have received the Nobel Prize for works in the English language more than any other language. That is the fact. And if Rabindranath Tagore's Gitanjali was not translated into English, the world would have never known about his great works. So this credit also goes to the English language, especially. Okay. Now, this old English literature. Okay, this thing we will try to know. So here from this picture, you can see how old English was. Here, look. Take a look. So this, I don't think any one of us can read about it. So it is a very undecipherable, right? And Old English literature, it lasted from 452 to 1066, right? So this is the timeline. This is created by the scholars, but in reality, it may not be the case. But as it is considered by the scholars and researchers, that's why we have to accept it. So if questions comes like that, the Old English literature, it span from this and that, then you have to write this 450 to 1066. So now and this is the first page of Beowulf. Beowulf, I have already told you, the first and famous epic book of Old English language. Now let's try to know more. Old English literature or Anglo-Saxon literature. Okay, Old English literature is also known as Anglo-Saxon literature, and it encompasses the surviving literature written in Old English in Anglo-Saxon England in the period after the settlement of Saxons and other Germanic tribes in England, Jutes and Angles, that is 450, after the withdrawal of Romans, and ending soon after the Norman conquest in 1066. So actually, Old English, these were written and produced and created by the after the settlement of Saxons, and Saxons and many other tribes like Jutes and Angles, those were from German. So they are the Germanic tribes. So in a way, from the Germanic tribes, the English language has originated. Okay. So it has its roots in German. And these works include genres such as epic poetry, hagiography, sermons, Bible translations, legal works, chronicles, and riddles. In all, there are about 400 surviving manuscripts from the period. So right now, we have 400 surviving manuscripts from Anglo-Saxon period or Old English. Got it? And we should know about this. And in those period, many literary works were created, where produced like epic poetry, hagiography, sermons, Bible translations, legal works, and chronicles and riddles. And another book is which it had appeared in the Exeter book of the late 10th century, and it gives a list of kings of tribes ordered according to their popularity and impact on history, with Attila, king of the Huns, coming first, followed by Iromric of Ostrogoths. So I'm sorry for the pronunciation. Okay, and it may also be the oldest extant work that tells the battle of Goths and Huns, which is also told in such later Scandinavian works as Harvarar's Saga and Gesta Danorum. Lodi Heidegger argued that the work was far older, however, and that was likely dated back to the late 6th or early 7th century, citing the author's knowledge of historical details and accuracy as proof of its authenticity. And she did note that, however, that some authors such as John Niles had argued that work was invented in the 10th century. So, as these works are produced in the Old English time, there were no paperwork, there were no things like we have in modern time. So that's why there will be some arguments, some conflict, and some disagreements about their literary works and all the things. So we will not talk that. Now let's go on. Then the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, it is a collection of annals in Old English, and from the 9th century that chronicles the history of Anglo-Saxons. So questions may come that what was the work what was the historical work that chronicles the history of Anglo-Saxons in Old English period? Then you have to write the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. Or questions may be molded, formed, and made in a different way. So you have to adapt according to it. And the poem Battle of Maldon, it also deals with history. And this is a work of uncertain date, celebrating the Battle of Maldon of 991, and at which the Anglo-Saxon failed to prevent a Viking invasion. So after the Battle of Maldon, then Viking had entered into England. Then the Vikings' reign was started. So this thing too you should know. Now, who were the Vikings? That you should check by yourself if you want to know deeply. Then we all know in our old times, oral tradition has been practiced by our forefathers and ancestors, right? And it is the same case with the Old English literature too. Oral tradition was very strong in the early English culture, and most literary works were written to be performed. Okay, they were not written to be read, because at that time there were no concepts like school, college, universities, jobs, and all that thing. And epic poems were very popular, and some, including Beowulf, it had survived to the present day. Beowulf is the most famous work in English language, and it has achieved national epic status in England. And despite being set in Scandinavia, the only surviving manuscript is the Noel Codex. Another surviving manuscript of old language is Noel Codex. This you should know. The precise date of which is debated, but most estimates place it's close to the year 1000. Okay, so old. So you will get this thing in the Museum of London. There are many things they have taken from the colonized place, and from our India, and even from our Assam too. They have taken many scriptures, manuscripts, monuments, statues, goals, and all the things. Even if you're from Assam, then it will be relevant for you that Mahapurush Shankardev's that Kirtan Ghosa, Nam Ghosa, that kind of precious manuscripts, scripts that were taken by them, the Britishers of the colonial period, and they had kept it in their England. And our Indian authorities, they are trying to bring it in our own country, and I hope it will be done soon, or they can keep the replica of it, right? So let it be. I will not discuss about that. And Beowulf is the conventional title, and its composition is dated between the 8th and the early 11th century. Okay, now let's try to know more about the Anglo-Saxon or Old English language. Nearly all Anglo-Saxon authors are anonymous. That means we don't know who had written that thing. Who has written Beowulf? We don't know. Who has written another works of Old English literature? We don't know. Because at that time, this culture of writer, it did not exist, right? That's why, but still, people often try to speculate. Here we will get to know. Nearly all Anglo-Saxon authors are anonymous. 12 are known by name from medieval sources, but only 4 of those are known by their vernacular works with any certainty, like Caedmon, Barry, Alfred the Great, and Cenewulf. Caedmon is the earliest English poet whose name is known, and his only surviving work, Caedmon Hymn, probably dates from the late 7th century. The poem is one of the earliest attested examples of Old English, and is, with the runic root-12 crows and Frank's cascade inscriptions, one of 3 candidates for the earliest attested example of Old English poetry. It is also one of the earliest recorded examples of sustained poetry in Germanic language. The poem, The Dream of the Rood, was inscribed upon the root-12 crows. So here, this kind of poem you should remember. So question may come in your exams. Then let's finish the Old English literature or period. Then we will try to discuss Middle English in our upcoming videos. If you enjoy it, do inform. So the 2 Old English poems from the late 10th century are The Wanderer and The Seafarer. So this thing you have to memorize. The 2 Old English poems from the late 10th century are, number 1 is The Wanderer, the second is The Seafarer. Okay, keep in mind. And both have a religious theme. And Richard Marsden described The Seafarer as an exhortatory and didactic poem in which the miseries of winter seafaring are used as a metaphor for the challenges faced by the committed Christian. Then classical antiquity was not forgotten in Anglo-Saxon England, and several Old English poems are adaptations of late classical philosophical texts. The longest is King Alfred's 849-899 9th century translation of Boethius' Consolation of Philosophy. So question may come, who has written the below work, Consolation of Philosophy? Then you have to write King Alfred. Thank you so much for watching the video. Keep on watching, and in our next video, we will try to know about the Middle English period in detail. This is a discussion about the history of English literature, especially Old English literature of England and English language or literature. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.